guys, it is Reed and welcome back to part 2 of my mentalism routine I call Traveler. If you didn't see part 1, make sure you go check that out. I explained to you, where this came from, what's the original, why this routine is great for beginners, and then why there were problems with the original way it's done, how I've overhauled it into a brand new routine, and I go over my preferred, the way that I typically perform this routine. In this video, I'm going to go over a fully propless handling. I'm going to go over a ton of other ideas, ways to make this effect stronger. Let me know what you think of this mentalism content. I would love to know. Drop a comment below. Like this video if you like it, and let's get into Traveler Part 2, aka the Denmark Psych Force. Alright guys, so where we left off last time, I had just wrapped up my preferred handling and the routine a Traveler. That is a Traveler, that is how I do it. So now let's dive into the fully propless version of this using a super neat math principle that you probably learned in elementary school. So, do you guys know the trick to do your 9 times tables with your hands? Yes? No? Here's what you do. You take any single digit and multiply it by 9. Okay, hold your hands towards you like this, all fingers up. Think of any single digit. Let's say 8. 9 times 8, that's a tough one to do mentally. Start from right to left, obviously, and put down your 8th finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So for you guys, I don't know which way it is, I think. Anyway, you put down your 8th finger, right? Look at yourself, put down your 8th finger from right to left. Now, the fingers that are up on the left side of your hand, so in this case for me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then on the right side, 1, 2. 7 and 2 is 72. What is 9 times 8? 72. This works with any single digit 9 times tables. And it's partially because of the principle that we're using behind this routine. But now try it again. Put down 4. You have 3 fingers on one side, 6 fingers on the other side of the finger. 36. Right? 9 times 4 is 36. So it's a really cool little simple math trick I remember learning as a kid, but I thought this could tie in really, really well to this routine, especially in a propless approach. So here is the propless version that is, tying similar to the originals, but fixing all of the problems that I talked about in part 1 with the original sort of technique where you're just throwing out random numbers, having them multiply, divide, all this. So what you do is you start by introducing this. You say, are you any good at math? Now, typically people say no, and if they say yes, it's fine. Whether they say no or yes, you say, have you ever heard of the 9 times table trick with your fingers, and you kind of gesture. Now, if they say yes, perfect, and then you just make sure they actually know how to use it. If they say no, well, you show them. You say, look, you can do any 9 times tables you want, just with your fingers. You don't even have to think about it. So let's say 9 times 4. What you do is you go from left to right, and you put down your 4th finger. So follow along with me. You make sure they follow along. Then you say, you look at the fingers on the left side of the finger that's down and the fingers on the right side, and you look at how many there is, and you create a 2-digit number. 3 and 6, 36. Now you have them try it to make sure they understand. So you say, what's 9 times 7? Pick a higher one, so they actually have to do it. And then they look at their hands, you make sure they put down the right finger, and as long as they say 63, you're good. So you just test it, make sure they actually understand it. And you say, okay, let's try something with that. Let's try something using that. Think of any single digit number, don't tell me. So now they think of one, you say, okay, just turn around and do the 9 trick. Multiply that number by 9 using the trick. So now it's justified why we're doing it, because we're trying something with the 9 trick, right? So they'll turn around, let's say they think of 5. They'll put down their 5th finger, and now they'll do 45. They'll say, okay, so you have the total in mind now. All right, so that's where the 9 force comes in. So now they have the total in their head, 45, okay? Now we need a little bit of time delay here, because if you think about it, watch. If I put down the first finger, I have 9 fingers. If I put down this finger, it's 9 fingers, 9 fingers, 9 fingers. So if they're very, very analytical, they could say 3 and 6, 9. 5 and 4, 9. 5 and 4, 9. 3 and 6, 9. 7 and 2, 9. 8 and 1, 9. So they could potentially see through that it's going to be at the 9 force. So we have to put a bit of time misdirection. Once they have that number, 45, in their head, you say, all right, now you could be thinking, of course, of any number, and you did this trick, and now you have a totally new number, totally random that I could never know, correct? Now what you go from here is you say, all right, let's make it even more random though. Take the single digits, right? So if you went for 22, you'd take the 2 and the 2, you'd add them together and get 4. So just take the single digits in your total and add those together. Right? So again, you give them an example so it's clear. Always be clear. give examples, but you're also giving an example that does not equal to 9. Now they'll add their 4 and their 5, and they will get 9. So now you're on 9, right? Really easy. This is fully propless. This one's easy. Now, it's less processed than the original one that I use. It's a little bit snappier, but it is less deceptive because at the end of the day, they only really had 9 choices to start with, right? Whereas in the other one, it feels like, well, they do. They have astronomically more choices to start with, and that's why I like that. It does seem quite a bit more deceptive. It hides the force really, really well. So again, it's up to your preference, but if you want to be totally propless, even though I consider phones as propless, but then you don't have to use a calculator for this because it's so super easy, but it also avoids the problem of people not being good at mental math because now they have the trick, and that's why this is so brilliant. Anyway, got to give myself credit for this. Now for the 5, there's a couple different things you could do. When you originally have them think of a single digit, you could say, we're both going to think of a single digit and we'll do the times table trick. Okay, this is what I often do. I obviously just think of 5. They think of whatever they do, we go through the process, now they're on 9. Then I say, here, let's make it more random, one last time. Then I use the same line. I say, do you want division or subtraction? Because we just did multiplication and addition, right? We've done the multiplication trick, and then they added together the single digits, right? So we've done multiplication and addition, so you just say, now we've done multiplication and addition. Do you want subtraction or division this time? Again, emphasize subtraction, and most likely they will say it because most people hate division. But again, if they say division, you just say, well, this might give us a decimal actually, so let's just do subtraction, right? So that's how you force subtraction, and again, another free choice seemingly. And then you say, okay, subtraction, and we'll just use the number I thought of at the beginning. I went for 5, so just subtract 5 from your total. So that's a version I really like. Another thing you could do is at the beginning, when instead of having them think of a single digit number, you say, all right, put your hands behind your back and just scramble your fingers and just land with a certain number up and a certain number down. You say, I'm gonna do the same thing, right? So you do this as well, and you just hold up 5. So let's say they go like this. Then you say, all right, turn around and see what single digit your fingers add up to. So in this case, it would be 8. And then you go through the process. You say, all right, now try the 9 trick with that number, create and you get them on number 9. So now you're standing here for the routine. Once you get them on 9, then you say, look, all right, I had 5. You do the subtraction force, and you have the number 5 once again. So those are the 2 methods that I typically go for with the Propless version. I prefer the first one, where I show them the 9 trick, and I say, all right, let's try something with this. Let's both think of a single digit number, and we'll do the 9 principle. So turn around, you do it with whatever single digit number you're thinking of. That'll force them to a 2 digit, a little bit of time delay. You say, all right, just to make it more random, add up the single digits that make up that number to get a new number. We've done addition, multiplication, so let's do division or subtraction. Which one do you want? They say subtraction, you say perfect. Okay, well, we'll use a number that I multiplied by 9 in the beginning, so it was 5. So just subtract 5 from your number. Now they'll be at 4, right? Then we go into the letter thing. We just say, all right, each number corresponds to a letter. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So just, figure out what letter corresponds with your number. The second they get it, you say, I want you to think of the first country that comes to mind that starts with this letter. They will have it. You do your reading, you do your reveal, you write it down. For the first time, what is the place you're thinking of? Denmark, and you turn it around, Denmark. Right, so that is the fully propless version using this really cool principle. I prefer the other one, like I said, more deceptive. I think the props help that, and I do like that better personally. I really like this idea though. If I want to do it, I do use this. It's a lot of fun. It's super cool, this justification and everything. Propless is great for certain situations, but it's not always better. And don't be afraid to use little props, especially like a phone or a piece of paper. Those are barely even props, guys, right? So, it's totally fine. All right, so now that you know the propless version, let's jump into some uses and other ideas. And in this, I'm going to cover a ton of cool ideas that you can do with this. Now, of course, like I said in the last video, I want to reiterate, make sure you don't let other people see the force item. So if you're using a deck of cards, like I talked about in the first video, don't be afraid. If you're just starting, skip all that process. Just force a 4 and just say, forget about the suit. I just want you to think about the card. But you have to be careful. When you do this, if you have an audience, don't let everyone see. Take the person you're doing the force on and just show them, because if everyone sees this, they will follow along. Same thing with this one. People are less likely to follow along because it involves, taking out their hands, a process. And you can see if people bring out their hands to do this, and you can kind of say, no, just them, don't worry about this, kind of pretend like, you don't need them to do this, but really you don't want them to do this. But again, that's why I prefer my method, because it's the most deceptive and no one ever follows along with it because they have to take out the calculator and stuff. But again, this is all preference to you, but just make sure that whatever force you use, and I said you can force 4 any way, absolutely any way that you want to, just make sure no one else sees the force card, because then they'll follow along, and when they all end up with Denmark, not going to be a great effect. Okay, we need to make this feel like it could have been any country. Now, don't be afraid to use minor props. I've talked about using cards as a force, right? But there's other things you can do with the cards that are great. So I'm going to show you a little idea from Ollie Mealing that is wonderful to use with this, and it's a great justification if you're struggling with some of the process and the justifications for, you know, multiplying by 9 or subtracting 5. This is awesome, and I do use this because a lot of times I do mentalism, you know, after my card set or while there are cards around. So this is great. Imagine you've done a bit of stuff with cards and you throw your cards off to the side. They're just sitting on the table there. Now you go through this and you force them at this point the number 9 using one of the various techniques I've given you. So they're on the number 9, and now you need a justification or a reason for them to subtract 5, and maybe you don't want to use the birthday thing, you think it's too confusing, or any of the other techniques that I've taught. And again, if you don't know what I mean by the birthday thing, then you didn't watch part 1, so go check that out. What you do is your deck's sitting off on the side, it's not even there. You just say, all right, do you want division or subtraction? They say subtraction, you say, okay, just subtract 5, let's go with 5. So you miscall, you just cut the deck, you pretend to look at a card, and you just say 5, subtract 5. It's brilliant, you just cut, you say 5, you just subtract 5 then. All right, you force the subtraction, and then you just say, we need a random number, let's go 5, so just subtract 5 for me. As you can see, that is not a 5, it's a 7. So, that's awesome. You can even do this whole routine this way, which is brilliant. Think of any single digit number, or any number at all if they have their calculator out. And then you say, here, multiply it by 9. Let's go, do that. Oh, that actually was a 9. See? That's another subtlety that he did talk about when I saw him do this, which is brilliant. If you happen to get lucky and cut to the card, show them. Show them. You know, there's no point to miscall, just actually show them. Great subtlety. But the point is, you know, you say, think of any single digit number, just multiply it by, and you just look around. Oh, here's my deck. Okay, just we need a random number. Multiply by 9. Sorry guys, my mic died. The audio quality might dip a little bit, but anyway. So what you would say is, you know, I just want you to subtract, we need any random number. Let's say 5 here, let's go with 5. And you just miscall it. But if you happen to cut to a 5, actually show them. That's a wonderful, wonderful subtlety. So it's a great idea. Wonderful idea there by Mr. Ollie Mealing. Now another great principle that we can utilize for, and this routine's actually perfect for, is piggybacking, which is a term, a principle coined by Peter Turner. The idea is we can take one piece of information, one piece of known or forced information, and follow that, piggyback along to a different piece of information. And because we're so far along from where we started and they feel like they had so many choices, it feels much more impressive, much more incredible, much more impossible that we are thinking of, or I know what they're thinking. So for example, in this routine, at its bare bones, we are piggybacking. We are starting with a single digit number, forcing another number, which is 9. And then from there, we know 9, so we can follow along. And then we just piggyback to 4, then to D, then to Denmark. So from a single digit number that's thought of, we know what that is, so we just follow along. We piggyback and get them to Denmark. Instead of just revealing that they're thinking of the number 9, which we totally could do. If you think about it, it's essentially the same effect. But we're just piggybacking to a completely new piece of information. So because we know what they're originally thinking of, it's super easy to follow. Now this routine is absolutely brilliant. You can do anything you want. You can practically force any object with this routine. Right? The original kind of used this, right? The original gray elephants in Denmark. Once you got to Denmark, then you would say, think of the second letter, which was an E. Think of the first animal that comes to mind that starts with that letter. Elephant. Think of the color of that animal. Gray. Now you've just forced 3 pieces of information from 1, which potentially can enhance the effect, potentially cannot enhance the effect much because, you know, it's kind of simple to backtrack if they assume that you already knew Denmark. But if you play it right, it can be super, super incredible. Now, what else can we do? Take the last letter in Denmark. Think of any animal you want that starts with that letter. Now you think about it, right? Guys, you design these yourself. Come up with any psych force you want, right? Because we know what they're thinking of. We know Denmark. We can now force anything else, right? Think of the first animal that starts with the last letter of the country you're thinking of. K. What are they going to say? Kangaroo. They're not going to say kiwi. That's a bird if you don't know. Koala. right? They might say koala. So now you just have kangaroo and koala to worry about. So you just need to think about these like a regular person. Also use Google. I Googled for this force. I said, what countries start with D? And a big list came up and I said, okay, no one's gonna say that, no one's gonna say that. Oh, they might say these two. So I'll keep those in mind just in case, you know, that's not a hit with Denmark or it's not a hit with the letter K. So it's good. You can easily force anything. It's something you want to force that starts with the letter E. Instead of forcing going from 9 to 4, go from 9 to 5 and then have them think of the letter E instead. So you can use components and principles that I've taught you in this routine to essentially force anything. You just need to categorize it so it's restricted, and then think of the other things within that category that typically start with the letter. The letter is typically the easiest way to go, that start with the letter, and then know your outs and, you know the options. People are, psychologically going to think the same as you, right? Especially where you're from. So that's kind of the idea here, and we piggyback into anything else. For example, you could do tons of other ideas. It doesn't have to be with letters. Denmark, I don't know what they eat in Denmark, but let's say you forced Italy instead, right? Maybe you go to the letter I, you force Italy, and you say, what's the most think of the most popular dish that they eat in whatever country you're thinking of, which you know is Italy, so you just follow along, right? Now you know they're going to be saying pizza. Right? And then maybe you could say, okay, think of the letter that shows up the most times in this word. Now they'll be thinking of Z, right? You just follow along, you just piggyback. It's easy. And then from there you say, okay, think of the first animal that starts with that letter. And they'll say zebra, right? There's nothing else they could say. So now they'll be thinking of zebra, and feel like they've had so many free choices, any country, any meal item, any letter, and then any animal. And somehow you still know the animal they're thinking of, and potentially you could reveal now the animal and Italy, because they're so far removed that would be impressive, right? You could reveal the pizza. You could reveal the other objects in there using this method in particular, because it's not all first letter, first letter, first letter, right? Because if they think zebra and they're like, okay, how did any word could have double Z in there, so I don't know how he got that. And then pizza, well, he didn't even know the country, right? So it's much more layered than think of the second letter of this, because then once you reveal one piece, then it's easy to backtrack. Okay, well, the second letter of this is E, so elephant, right? Color is obviously gray. So you could potentially get multiple hits out of this one simple routine. Another great idea, I have a routine where I force the Jack of Hearts and the number 30 in a very clean way, and then I do any card, any number, the Jack's already at the number 30, and I have this really cool tattoo reveal as well. But I force the number 30 using these principles. You can force any number this way too, because they'll always be at 9, just springboard from there. So I'll go through the typical birthday force that I talked about in part 1. They'll be forced on the number 9, and I'll say, if we need to multiply it, let's multiply it by, let's say, 4 here. Multiply it by 4, right? And I'll just do a missed call. Then they'll go 9 times 4, they'll go 36. Then I'll say, let's make it even more random. Let's subtract 6. Let's go 6. Subtract 6. Now they'll be from 9 times 4, 36, minus 6 is 30. So you can just come up with justifications. I really like this one for that particular scenario, and then you can force any number you want by springboarding from 9. Just figure out your justifications, and you can literally force any number, anything. You can create whatever routines you want, guys. Just think about how to restrict them. I've given you plenty of techniques. You can force any number using this. You can force essentially any piece of information, different piece of information, different things within categories. It's just about working it out, right? How to be able to piggyback. So that's a brilliant gold principle that you guys have just learned. Now the last big thing I want to talk about here is using this as a catalyst for a one ahead. Now I have a ton of little routines like this that are simple either psych forces, word forces, name forces, whatever, that force or have people think of names, and I can divine what those are without them saying it, and I can use these as the catalyst for a one ahead. Now, I'm not going to go too far into a one ahead in this, because that is a whole other mentalism routine with a ton of subtleties and things that you can do. And that deserves its own video, and potentially the Mentalism 101 series will be a good point for that, because I do use one ahead a lot. Again, I'm not going to give away all my subtleties that I use and other ideas, but just very simple. Once you have forced Denmark on one person, you turn to someone else and you say, think of any whatever you want. I don't like saying think of any word or anything, because I feel like that's too broad and it doesn't make it feel that possible. Then they think there must be a trick. I like to categorize it a bit, so I'll say think of any animal you want. And I'll say focus for me, think of that animal, and then I'll just pretend to do a reading, make a few little guesses. Okay, I'm already giving you guys some subtleties. Make a few little guesses as to what you think the animal could be. Super broad. Say, I'm thinking this might be a mammal, maybe medium-sized. What the hell does medium-sized animal mean? But I say that as if I'm actually reading them. These are some of the gold nuggets for you guys who have watched this whole thing. And then I just, whether they say yes or no, it doesn't matter. Because if they say no, that's actually a good thing, because then they think I'm way off. So when I hit, it's even stronger. If they say yes, then it just proves my credibility. So either way, you're fine. I write down Denmark, fold it up, put it in someone's hand. Then I say, all right, my prediction's locked in for the first time. What's the animal you're thinking of? They say panda. I say perfect. Come back to this person. I say, okay, focus on that city for me, or that country for me. Okay, I'm thinking there's a K in it, isn't there? Yeah. I write down panda, fold it up, give it to that person, have them throw them out on the table, or you put it in a glass, dump them on the table so they get a little bit mixed up, and you say, all right, both my predictions are locked in. You said your animal panda, and for the first time, what was the place you were thinking of? Denmark. You open it up and you have a double reveal. So that's a super quick one ahead. I gave you a few of my little gold subtleties. I have plenty more, but that is how you would do a one ahead with this, and then you have a brilliant routine where you've revealed 2 pieces of information, and even if the one was a bit of a process, the other one's so clean, so free, that it kind of ties up with the other one as well. So that's about all I have for part 2 of the Traveler routine, aka the Denmark Psych Force. And I hope you guys like it. This was a ton of fun to make. I actually really loved this video. A lot of work went into this, so much gold. If you guys watch both parts of these, you will have learned more mentalism than is on all of YouTube. No, I'm kidding. But, this is definitely a really gold video. I went over a bunch of techniques, and I'm probably gonna make videos on all of these techniques on their own eventually, but this was, I think, a good catalyst or a good starting point to see if this is something you guys would want more of, what you think of my mentalism teaching, because it is a lot different to teach mentalism than cards, and just to see, what your guys' opinion is on this, and just give back a little something, because a lot of people have been, asking for a mentalism routine, Propless mentalism, and this I think really takes this trick, this Psych Force, to the next level. It's 100%, especially if you know all the country outs, just in case they don't say that, all these things. Super, super valuable. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, if you would like that Mentalism 101 series, please let me know, because I'm really considering it. It would sort of be how to get started in mentalism if you're a playing card magician in particular, but how to get started, where to start. I'd start with simple principles, effects you could do, and build my way from there. Like I said, mentalism, it's tricky to teach on YouTube. A lot of the principles don't belong to me, and they're new within the last decade or so they're not exactly public domain. So it is tricky for me to teach some routines that I have, because they use those principles, so I have to figure out how to deal with that. But there's a lot that I still can provide you guys with. So with all that said, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, drop a like, drop me a comment. I love the comments. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.